Hello there and welcome. So in this edition of Learning from Experience Dashcam Incidents, we're going to look at mainly car clips, but they're very relevant to you on a motorcycle. So in this first clip here, the car waiting by the side of the road sees the car behind pull up and stop and assumes that they're letting them go. Unfortunately, they haven't looked far enough up the road to realise there's an oncoming vehicle, and that is the reason that the car behind them actually stopped and waited. It's worth bearing in mind that you're very certain of what other road users are doing before you react, and that's why waving and flashing headlights can be such a bad idea. If you do that on your test, you're going to fail. Don't ever beckon anybody or flash anybody, and similarly, when they flash or beckon you, be certain with what is going on before you actually move your vehicle. So in this next clip here, we've got very slow traffic on a roundabout, which isn't unusual, where it's traffic light controlled, and it's during the rush hour. If you look carefully to the left, you'll see that there's a vehicle that has been involved in some form of collision, and that in its own right might not make you any more suspicious of anything, but look well up the road, as we always should. You'll see there's a large goods vehicle in lane 1 blocking the carriageway. Notice how the vehicle behind likes to accelerate pretty quickly. He obviously wasn't looking far enough ahead. You need to observe well ahead so that you don't put the gas on unnecessarily and nearly go into the back of the car in front of you. So this is just a very brief learning clip. The car approaches traffic lights, which are green, but notice how the traffic ahead of the junction is slowing and coming to a stop. Highway code says if the lights are green, you may go on if it's clear. So it doesn't just mean go, it means go if clear. So now the vehicle has crossed the stop line and the traffic lights have gone back to red. So technically this car is stuck in the junction. It really shouldn't have crossed the stop line until it had somewhere to go. You may have seen this clip in one of my other videos before. If you look well up the carriageway there in the mirror, you can see an ambulance with blue lights. So 64 seconds later, the ambulance has not made good progress. In particular at this point, a white Range Rover and a black Mercedes are staying in lane 4 and are not moving over at all. It makes you wonder if they've checked their mirrors at all in recent times, and I would certainly suggest that the Mercedes hasn't. Notice how the ambulance does not undertake but holds its lane discipline. But you can see here the Mercedes is completely oblivious. Mirrors should be checked every few seconds. It's as much for your benefit as anybody else's. So that could be a member of your family that ambulance is trying to get to. And for the sake of not checking your mirrors, you've delayed that vehicle. It's also interesting that the ambulance had its sirens on, and at high-speed roads, sirens are difficult to hear inside a vehicle, especially if you've got the radio on as well. In this next clip, be careful with what you might find around the corner. It's worth mentioning here that the Highway Code has brought in its new hierarchy of road users based on the vulnerability, with of course pedestrians being the most vulnerable. But it does also mention about everyone sharing responsibility for their own safety, as well as looking after one another's. So as the car comes round the corner here, you'll see two pedestrians walking in the road. Of course, there's no footway here, and that can't be avoided. However, notice how they walk with their back to the traffic. They're two abreast, and at no point do they check behind them to see what is going on. They have completely entrusted their own personal safety to everybody else on the road. And whilst it would be nice if we could do that, reality suggests that we can't. So, if you're a pedestrian, just be a little bit more aware and think about facing oncoming traffic rather than walking with your back. Except, of course, on blind bends where you may have to change sides. So now we're going to look at being patient or taking a risk. Or do people just miscalculate things? So in this clip, the road is a national speed limit and the vehicle is travelling at around about 47 miles an hour. As you can see, the weather is torrential rain with a lot of surface water on the road. This road has a number of junctions to it, both on the left and the right. So as we've said before in videos, forward vision is vital. You look well up the road and you see hazards very, very early. This way, you're able to react to things happening in good time. Always anticipate the worst case scenario, even though the road may look relatively uncomplicated. So as we approach a junction here, we are on a right-hand bend. Bends and junctions don't mix. So the vehicle was travelling at about 47 miles an hour, and the oncoming vehicle turned across its path when there was about 56 metres distance between them. So your overall stopping distance is approximately 48 metres on a dry road, and the speed reduced immediately to 46, and you can see there that the braking distance in the dry is 32 metres, and we've got approximately 47 metres distance between the camera car and the vehicle turning in front. At this point here, the camera car was decelerating to 39 miles an hour, and there was a difference of 24 metres as the car cleared the junction. The good news is, with the car clearing the junction, we didn't have to come to a complete stop. That would have made things very tricky indeed. But it's very risky to do that in front of a car in heavy rain. Even in the dry, that would have been risky. It's very fine margins. This was either impatience on the part of the black car or a big misjudgment. Either way, it was potentially very dangerous. If the oncoming vehicle had been a heavy goods vehicle or a motorcycle, we'd have had further issues of braking and stopping. So if you are going to turn across the path of oncoming traffic, make sure you have plenty of space. We don't know if that car is manual or automatic, but if it started to come across the junction and stalled, then the situation would have indeed become very tricky. We can see, however, that the driver had a view of that car at about 210 metres away when he first saw it. And in the very last clip of this edition, it's a little road positioning issue with cars again. We see quite a few of these. So this is a fairly small car. I believe it's a Ford KA, and he wants to turn left at the roundabout, believe it or not. Have a look at his road position. I'm sure the red car was impressed with that. Perhaps the KA driver is just hoping to be a lorry driver one day and likes to swing out to get a nice turn round the corner. Anyway, could have been a lot worse. Just think, that could have been you and your bike coming towards that guy. So good forward vision, sensible use of speed and road positioning, keeps you safe as you can be. So until next time, ride safe and take care.